Hey guys, good to be back with you. Today I've got five tips for anybody who is interested in doing the crazy thing going along on this Hexagon challenge that I've embarked upon. It's not really for the faint of heart, especially if you value your time highly, because you end up sitting at your computer pushing continue a whole bunch of times, as I've realized here. If you have a league that only plays for 3 months out of the year, you got 9 months of hitting continue. That's not much fun. Having said that, there are a couple of bits and pieces of advice that I have if you're going to seriously embark on this journey, some things that you might want to consider as you move along. Number one is to plan your credential building experience. You want to build as many credentials from the very beginning as you possibly can. I've been saying this a little bit over the most recent videos and over the most recent days. It turns out in Football Manager that probably the easiest way to get coaching credentials is to work for an amateur club, because there's nothing else that the club has to spend money on, right? Especially if you're in one of these islands and like the stadium is shared among all the clubs and you don't really pay a whole lot for it. If that's the case, you definitely want to get into a club like that and try to get as many coaching qualifications finished as you possibly can, because the club will pay for it. It's not really going to hurt you as a manager because you're at like the total amateur, we don't even know how to play the game level, right? This is what you want to do at the very, very beginning. You want to try to build up those coaching certificates and credentials as quickly as you possibly can, so that right out of, say, Oceania or Africa or wherever it is you're doing it, you can start moving straight up to clubs that are a little bit higher in profile, and you don't have to spend necessarily too long hanging out in the amateur ranks. So that brings me sort of to point number two, which is that, playing in random leagues like American Samoa is a lot of fun. It's pretty cool. I can talk about it on Twitter, get weird looks from people, talk about it on the forums and stuff. But at some point in time, you're going to want to get out of leagues like this, and you're going to want to start managing in the big boy leagues, and you're going to want to start having like transfer budgets to worry about, wage budgets and stuff like that, because you want to do something that's competitive, right? So the point of the Hexagon Challenge, if you are unaware, is to win the Champions League in all 6 continental competitions: Oceania, Africa, Asia, North America, South America, and Europe. Right? We have to get towards that goal at some point in time. We want to be making progress towards it. In other words, we probably want to stay away from countries that have no shot at qualifying. We want to make sure that we're in a place managing a team that actually could be competitive in that type of international match. And as much fun as it is to do this really slowly and like build up this huge amount of experience hanging out at the lower levels, at some point in time, you really do kind of have to move things along, and we got to move forward and make sure that we're coaching at teams that have a chance of winning the thing, right? We don't want to get caught in a rut where like we can't make any progress and we just end up in the same league over and over again. That's not what this is about. This is about trying to move forward and trying to experience football in a whole bunch of different countries and in a lot of different cultures. So keep that in mind. I would recommend, and I'm going to try to do this myself, I would recommend moving on to professional teams really as soon as possible, assuming, of course, you've built up the right credentials, but you want to move on to professional teams that have a chance of winning the Champions League, right? So, for example, say that we go to Asia, right? I'm definitely going to want to think, oh, man, it'd be great I can play in, like, Laos, or I can go manage, a team in, I don't know, Vietnam or something like that. But if I'm serious about trying to win the AFC, at some point in time, I'm going to really have to seriously consider managing in Japan or South Korea or China, right? I know that you feel like everybody does that, but at some point in time, you've got to take that seriously. Or if you're in Africa, you've got to consider managing like in Egypt, right? Even though it's pretty cool to go to like Ethiopia or whatever, at some point in time, you're going to have to take a look at this and say, okay, or I've had my fun, let's go out there and win something, right? Same thing's true of Europe. As cool as it is that I think it's Kazakhstan that actually is in Europe, not in Asia, for whatever reason. As cool as that is, or as cool as it would be to go like manage in Israel or something, at some point in time, we do kind of want to move on to like France or Germany or England so that we have a chance of actually winning it, and so that we're not just playing games over and over again forever. When we talk about that, when it comes to transfer policy, don't be afraid of getting older players in the transfer market, the sort of guys that nobody really wants to get. I don't know if this has been completely changed in Football Manager this year or not. I know that in the past, usually the computer manager would kind of put too much of a premium on these older players that really are not that good in the game. But don't let that get in your way if you're doing this type of save. It's okay to pick up older guys who have good talent who can give you something this year if you want to win this year. We're always thinking about winning like within the next 2 or 3 years if possible. We're probably not going to stay at any club for a decade or longer. In other words, as cool as it is to do a bunch of youth development, like, is probably not going to be a huge part of the save. That's a completely different type of save and a different approach to playing Football Manager. This is more about jumping from league to league and trying to piece together what we can given what we have, given the resources at our disposal. Number 4 for us is to take players along with you if you possibly can. That adds a lot to the flavor of the game. It may be the case that if you go to, like, I don't know, if we were to go to South Korea and I take Toa Maile with me, that he looks totally out of place and doesn't really belong there. Frankly, though, I don't really care that much. And the reason why I don't care is because he's part of the story. And I want to have more players with me that are kind of part of the storyline that we're building up. That sometimes is more important than being efficient. We want to try to make some sort of cohesive story as best as possible. Unfortunately, I haven't had the time to really sit down and write out the type of storyline that I love to do for the game, but I will tell you that will start writing itself if you bring good players with you from one country to the next. But if you end up just sort of like jumping out there and you bring nobody along with you, or you don't go back and hire your favorite players or whatever, the storyline kind of goes away. So if you possibly can, try to bring players along with you. That helps improve the richness of the game. It's also a little bit more realistic than going and reinventing the wheel every single continent along the way. And then number 5, and I think this is actually important, a lot of people I think miss this one, is please record your experience somehow for the rest of us, right? Post about it, write in FM stories about it, go post on a message board about it, post on Reddit, talk about it on Twitter, whatever. It doesn't really matter to me how you do it. Share it with the rest of us, because it's actually really interesting to read people's stories and to see what happens, especially if there's a bit of drama in there, if there is some sort of miracle match that you want or something like that. That's the sort of stuff that's really, really fascinating, right? It's not necessarily so interesting to read like another story about the next person's like Manchester United rebuild or whatever. I mean, we've all done stuff like that before, but a major challenge that takes a long time and requires a lot of effort on your part and a lot of patience, that's something that's interesting to read, and that's a sort of journey that can pay a lot of dividends, I would say, for you in the long term, in terms of getting people to pay attention, or in terms of helping make an addition to the community or something like that. So there you go. There's the 5. Build up your credentials in game from the start. Make sure you at some point in time are actually making progress towards the goal. Don't just spin your wheels forever. Don't be afraid of getting older guys in the transfer market, and don't do necessarily the youth only movement, though I tend to do that naturally. Not necessarily the best way to go. Take your favorite players along with you as you move up, because it's fun. And then finally, let us all know about it and let us know what happens. Talk to you later. Bye.